a student of anthropology, but she told people she had a degree from anthropology from UC Berkeley, of which she had taken 2 field classes. So for 50 years, people thought she was an anthropologist, a degreed anthropologist. So she purchases the property, the 160-acre homestead. She purchases a home and she purchases the contents of the home. And then she gradually opens the entire estate as the Antelope Valley Indian Museum. Now, 1945, Mr. Edwards comes out. She stuccos the building. Mr. Edwards does the murals on the new stucco, oversees the construction of 4 new cottages, the enlargement of 2 cottages that are already built, Yucca Cottage and Joshua Cottage. Then, curiously, in 1948, Grace Oliver is ill, and she sells the property. And it's a 3rd iteration of like a Western expansionist narrative. It becomes the Golden Mesa Dude Ranch. This becomes the lodge of the Golden Mesa Dude Ranch. It's advertised in the desert magazines. And in 1950, they go ahead and they build a swimming pool where the dancing was done today. If you can imagine, and maybe today's not the day, this is what they built there for the guests. And it was about the size of this room. And then in 1952, Grace Oliver regains her health and she buys the museum back. Now, Mr. Edwards had retired from teaching school in 1945, and he became an artist in residence and an arts preparator at the Southwest Museum in Highland Park, which was the premier private collection of American Indian artifacts in Los Angeles. Grace Oliver invites him in 1952 to come back. He brings a young graduate student with him from UCLA, Charles Rozier. Charles Rozier is studying archaeology. He becomes Dr. Charles Rozier, the director of archaeology at the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles. So the 3 of them reinterpret the collection. It's the first time anyone with an education, formalized education, actually interprets the collection. This room we call the Southwest room, but it's more of a accumulation of the 1952 reinterpretations. So we have the 1930s, 1952, 1989, and then upstairs 1930s again. Now, then in 1979, Grace Oliver was in ill health. She was going to sell the property and then also sell the collection to a German collector. Fortunately for us, there was an activist in the community, Earl Amspoker. Her husband had been the first lawyer in Palmdale, so she was quite community civic minded. She started a letter writing campaign through the American Women's University Association, and the state was basically forced to take this park as a state historic park in 1979. So she donated the collection and she sold the property, of which again we have 147 of those original photos. So there's a lot to look at. Not everything's labeled, so if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. And then when you go upstairs, cases 8, 9, 10, 11 are the only original museum cases remaining. And they example Edwards' rather romanticized relationship to American Indian culture. You'll also see a photograph under case number 8. From 1931 to 1935, Edwards wrote pageants and he produced plays or pageants. He built a huge theater set into what he called the Theater of the Standing Rocks, into the butte. His friends and families would wear black wigs, Plains Indian clothing, sometimes African spears. They would dress basically in red face, and they would perform for the public. They were reviewed and advertised in the LA Times. 75 cents, beautiful Lancaster. So he also wrote other strange, like a novel that's kind of strange too. Like his 1931 play is, the 1935 play is a correction of the 1931 play because he didn't think the public was getting it. So he changes up the language, making it a little bit more pedestrian so that you can understand it better. So you'll see that photograph, and then case number 24, all those objects are found here, and then case 25 and 6 are objects on permanent loan from USC from the Allen Hancock collection of the Beryl Springs site, which is still completely littered with artifacts. In fact, the family that owns it, the Stearns Trust, were here probably 6 months ago, and they had just unearthed yet another steatite stone. So, if you have any questions, ask, and also get on our email list. We have events here. We do nights at the museum. As I was telling you, we have 2 fertility carvings on this site. One for the winter equinox, one for the summer solstice. We've done tours there. We do holidays on the homestead. We have a children's pageant where we do also with regards to that, the female fertility garden being Simeones, there's another one 3 miles south of here. There's another summer solstice pictograph 3 miles south of here. Another indication of occupation. So enjoy, and we close in 45 minutes, so you really have to enjoy.
Everything's man.